Ben Shapiro, speaking of another right-winger who's platformed for absolutely no reason whatsoever, he's still on his Victims of Crimes Should Not Be Heard tour, which is probably the first time the right ever says this, right? I mean, did we hear Ben Shapiro talk about how, what was it, Stacey's Law in California was wrong? This is the immigration, you know, the story of the woman who was supposedly murdered by an undocumented immigrant. And it turns out when he was tried that, in fact, no, he did not kill her. It was some accidental thing where there was a gun that was, you know, that he found and literally just went off. But the idea that the right in this country now believes that being a victim does not give you the opportunity to speak about criminal reform is absurd. It is absurd. But here is Ben Shapiro going on to make that very same argument.
Do you think the agenda that's being pushed is gun control by interviewing students who are scared to go back to school? Is that how you perceive it?
No, I mean, I think that the agenda being pushed is gun control if there, again, is no pushback on questions that would be asked to any other guest. I think that tragedy is obviously a terrible thing, but it doesn't necessarily confer expertise, and that's one of the big problems here.
You're very popular, Ben. Do you want to grab that?
Yeah, exactly. Goodness gracious.
It happens to all of us. I wanted to ask you, though, you know, your website, The Daily Wire, a lot of other conservative...
Well, I'm curious as to what type of expertise you need to simply call for protection for kids in schools. In fact, I would think being a student in a school would give you the exact expertise you would need to know how much you want that protection. But apparently this is a very complex and sophisticated thing that students can't understand. Continue.
Wire, a lot of other conservative media sites that have criticism of the press. I sometimes worry y'all are trying to tear things down as opposed to make them better. It's one thing to critique and want journalism to be better, but sometimes I feel like you're just trying to get rid of journalism altogether.
I mean, questioning the motive I don't think is a useful thing. If you can point out to me where the critique is wrong, I think that's one thing. If the suggestion is that the critique is invalid because the motive is invalid, that's another. So again, I think that if you don't like the motive, then ignore the motive and take the critique insofar as it's effective, right? We all have motives, but the fact is, listen, I don't want CNN to disappear. I don't want the New York Times to disappear. I don't want the Washington Post to disappear. I want them to do what they say they are supposed to be doing. I want them to perform objective journalism if that's what they say they're going to do, and opinion journalism if they want to say that they're opinion journalists. That's fine. My problem is when this is why my critique of, for example, the New York Times op-ed page is far less than my critique of the New York Times objective journalism. There's a difference between op-ed and journalism. It's why my critique of MSNBC sometimes is a lot less strident, I think, than my critique of CNN, because CNN purports to be objective. MSNBC really does not purport to be objective in the same way.
Part of me thinks that you and your colleagues at the Daily Wire should try to get jobs then at the New York Times. If you don't like the coverage, try to be a part of the solution as opposed to complaining about it.
I mean, I don't know. Would you hire me? I really doubt that. And not only that,
I wanted you as a guest for many months.
I'll be frank with you. I mean, I make a lot of money.
I wanted you as a guest for many months.
All right. The amount of nothingness that was discussed there is stunning. But the idea that the right has been attacking journalism as an institution has been ongoing for at least multiple decades. At least. And they are not attacking the specific journalistic institutions. They are attacking journalism.
I don't know.
I do. The left has in all throughout. I mean, the entire the growth of blogs was a function of critiquing the specific journalism, not the idea of journalism. The intellectual foundations of the conservative movement is to attack science, is to attack any type of objective reality. They said as much during the Bush administration, where you folks are part of the reality-based community, they would argue.
I think Stelter kind of asked the wrong question, though. like when we're talking about like what I love so much about Nathan Robinson is he really is going through and responding to these people's points. And Stelter could have done that, but instead he took it to another place entirely.
Well, yeah, the whole conversation was so theoretical and not even grounded into, why not say, like, when you critique the New York Times in this way, answer that. I mean, they're both talking about nothing. And the idea that you would pursue Ben Shapiro, for what end? For what end? But there it is, folks.
I thought Alex Jones's response to
exactly
was much more interesting.